Okay, so now we've had one example in the analogy on how to solve an equation using this whole idea of unwrapping. So let's just kind of go through the idea here real quick. If we want to unwrap an equation, the first thing we're going to do is we are going to analyze, we're going to think how the unknown was wrapped in the first place. And once we know how it was unwrapped, what we're going to do is to unwrap, what we're going to do is we're going to do the opposite things and probably a better word here would be inverse. So we're going to do the inverse things, we're going to do the undoing things in the reverse order. So if we started with squaring, then we will end with the opposite or inverse of squaring, which would be a square root. So let's take a look at another example. Let's start with the equation 3x plus 5 equals negative 7. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do this analyze. We're going to draw a little diagram of what happened to x using order of operations. So, as I look at my equation, if I knew what x was, following order of operations, I would be multiplying it by 3. And after I was finished multiplying it by 3, the next thing I would do is add 5. And when I was all said and done, this would look like a negative 7. So here's the gift, here's the pink socks hidden in the box, and here's what the wrapped box looks like. Now, to take this out, now that I see how this was wrapped up, I'm going to do the inverse things in the reverse order. So the inverse, or the opposite of adding 5, would be subtracting 5. And after I subtract 5, then I'm going to do the opposite of multiplying by 3, which would be dividing by 3. And this should tell me who x is. So again, I'm going to start with the present as it was handed to me, which is a negative 7, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract a 5, and that will give me a negative 12. And then I'm going to take this negative 12 I got from this step, I'm going to carry it into the next step, where it says I need to divide by 3. Negative 12 divided by 3 is a negative 4, which should be what x is. So now if I look at this, okay, let's see. If I start with a negative 4 for my x and multiply it by 3, I'll get a negative 12. And if I add 5 to a negative 12, I will indeed end up with a negative 7. So let's try one more example before we end this video. And let's try a real short one. 1/5 x equals 8. Okay. Well, again, I'm going to think about how this was wrapped. Okay. Using order of operations, I say if I knew what x was, I would multiply it by 1/5. And the answer would be an 8. Now, to undo this, I know the inverse of multiplication is division, so if I divide by 1/5, I remember from my rules in pre-algebra, division of a fraction is the same as multiplying by a reciprocal. So really, these two are the same idea. They are interchangeable. And once I'm done with that, it should tell me what was wrapped up inside this box. So if I take 8 and I divide by 1/5, that's the same as 8 times 5, which is 40, and that should be who x is, because there's no other steps to go through. And sure enough, if I go ahead and check myself. 40 multiplied by 1/5 is 40 divided by 5, which is 8, which confirms my answer.